Oh man, so Kevin O'Leary just blamed Binance and CZ for the collapse of FTX. Yes, Kevin O'Leary at the FTX hearing said that CZ was to blame for FTX collapse and gives details around what he believes led to the collapse of the world's second largest exchange. We're also going to cover off the rebuttal from CZ on Twitter and loads more. You can see the Bitcoin price is hovering downwards just now, sitting down 0.5% here on the charts after Jerome Powell attempted to rug pull markets yesterday, but markets are having none of it. We're going to watch the key levels. We're also going to cover off exactly what happened. So smash on likes. Don't forget to subscribe. But first, we've got to kick off with this. Let's take a listen in here to exactly what Kevin O'Leary said at the hearing yesterday.
Why do you believe FTX failed?
I have an opinion. I don't have the records. Here it is. After my accounts were stripped of all of their assets and all of the accounting and trade information, I couldn't get answers from any of the executives in the firm, so I simply called Sam Bankman-Fried and said, "Where is the money, Sam?" He said he had been refused access to the servers. He no longer knew. I said, "Okay, let's step back. This is a simple case in my mind of where did the money go?" And I said, "Sam, walk me back 24 months. Tell me the use of proceeds of the assets of your company. Where did you spend it?" And then he told me about a transaction that occurred over the last 24 months, the repurchase of his shares from Binance, his competitor. I didn't know this at the time, but at some point, CZ or Binance, who runs Binance, purchased 20% ownership in Sam Bankman-Fried's firm for seed stock. And then, over time, and I asked him, what would compel you to spend $2 billion was the number he was giving me at that time. Later, in a subsequent conversation, about 24 hours later, he told me it could have been as much as $3 billion to buy back the shares from CZ. I asked him, what would compel you to do that? Why wouldn't you keep your assets on your balance sheet? And why would you offer this to just one shareholder? He said, because every time we went to get licensed in different jurisdictions, because you must understand the prize of crypto is to get regulated. For all the talk we say about Bitcoin and everything else, no institutions own this. I work for the sovereign wealth and pension plans. They don't touch this stuff because it's unregulated. Between these two, let's call them frenemies, because they obviously were potentially the two largest shareholders in the firm, they had a disagreement. They had a falling apart. Apparently, according to Sam Bankman-Fried, CZ would not comply with the regulators' request in these different geographies, these different jurisdictions, to provide the data that would clear them for a license. He withheld it, according to Sam Bankman-Fried. The only option the management and Sam Bankman-Fried had was to buy him out at an extraordinary valuation of close to $32 billion, less apparently a 15% discount. That stripped the balance sheet of assets. You ask me why it went bankrupt? Go to the last week. All of a sudden, in social media, CZ is asking for another $500 million. He wants to do a block trade of FTT, or the proprietary token of FTX. Wants it converted back to fiat. Why would you put that out there? You know it's going to push down the pressure. It's going to push down the value of that coin dramatically, and that's exactly what happened. Every trader knows that if you have a large block trade, you go negotiate a clearing price with other buyers and you do the transaction. In my view, my personal opinion, these two behemoths that own the unregulated market together and grew these incredible businesses in terms of growth were at war with each other. And one put the other out of business intentionally. Now, maybe there's nothing wrong with that. Maybe there's nothing wrong with love and war. But Binance is a massive, unregulated, global monopoly now. They put FTX out of business. Now, lots of other reasons, I'm sure, but that's my personal opinion. That is what Sam Bankman-Fried told me in terms of where the assets went. Why should we care? Single reason. I'm a shareholder. You tell me the two largest shareholders do a transaction together, that's a related party transaction. I'm not sure that's okay. Maybe I want a Madoff clawback on those proceeds.
So there you have it, guys. Absolute shots fired by Kevin O'Leary. And this might not be a popular opinion, but I think a lot of what was just covered off could be deemed to be true, right? Now, let's not get this mistaken. Sam Bankman-Fried is not going to get off the hook at all. What he's done in terms of commingling funds and moving funds from FTX into Alameda Research and taking risky bets over there with customer funds, absolutely unforgivable, and hopefully justice prevails over there. But what's interesting, and what will continue to be interesting from these hearings, is the data that continues to come out. Because the reality is, when we get hearings like this, as lay people, as retail investors, we get data we would not normally get access to. And I've continued to say this for a long time, that let's not put CZ or anybody else, by the way, not anybody else on a pedestal. How many times have I said that? If you've heard me say that before, smash up the likes and hit a comment. Let me know that you've heard me say that. Because the reality is, these things are going to come out, and there's a lot of potential truth to that. The fact that CZ would have owned a percentage of FTX just to keep an eye on them so he knows what's going on. Otherwise, why would you own 20% of another exchange when you're trying to build the world's biggest exchange, which is 7 times bigger? Right? There's a lot going on there. Why would you publicly announce that you're going to sell FTT? And look, I know a lot of people making arguments that this is completely normal behavior, but you've got to think of it from a business perspective as well. These two are sharks. However you want to look at it, Sam Bankman-Fried and CZ have a level of shark in them. Otherwise, you don't get to where you're at. And if you believe this whole genius, philanthropic billionaire narrative, that's why you get fooled every single time, because the reality is they like to play that perception. Just like we found out from Sam Bankman-Fried. Why was he paying reporters? Why was he donating? Right? He was doing this to give that impression, to give that image. Why was he driving a Corolla? To give that image, because people fall for it. Hook, line, sinker. Right? And CZ, to much an extent, could be doing the same. And you've got to be careful. And the reality is, if nothing goes wrong, great. If Binance continues to remain strong, great. But we cannot deny the fact that Binance do hold an absolute monopoly now in terms of centralized exchanges. They can do what they want. And if you followed what's happened with the whole Coin Mamba situation on Twitter, who's quite a high-profile crypto Twitter person, his account got suspended, whether rightly or wrongly, on Binance. You guys can take your position on that by doing your own research. But it shows that you're left with nowhere else to go. I mean, previously, if you weren't on Binance, you'd be on a bit of FTX. You can use a few other exchanges as well. But there's a clear monopoly now sitting at the top in terms of trading volume and every other way in Binance. And that causes a problem for us in the long-term perspective in terms of crypto, because we don't have the diversification of risk. We don't have the competitive landscape that allows us, the consumers, to have choice. And choice is what puts us in a safer position. When we have choice, we can pick where to put our funds. Right now, people aren't left with much choice, right? And this causes problems. So definitely a bunch of things are going to come out in the FTX hearing. I'm looking forward to it. Look, one thing is for sure, we know Kevin O'Leary was a paid spokesman for FTX. He was paid $15 million, much of which he says he lost because it was sitting in tokens on the exchange. But doesn't mean we can just discount everything that is being said. I'm trying to dissect it and look for the bits that make sense to me. And the bit about CZ holding 20% of FTX and potentially putting a roadblock in the way of obtaining some of the regulatory licenses, I mean, look, that sounds like something somebody might do, right? If you're a shark and you're trying to run the world's biggest exchange, which is unregulated, FTX unregulated, Binance unregulated, is that not something you would do to slow down your competitor? Potentially, you could argue, right? As Kevin O'Leary said, all fair in love and war. Right, so we've got to monitor that. Loads going to come out. Really exciting news there. Also, a few other things which is interesting on the FTX before I move on, because I know some of you guys are really fed up with the FTX narrative, but we've got to cover it off. We're going to learn a lot about the crypto space. I've been listening to the hearings. I know they're 2-3 hours long, but I've been listening to them, and there's a load of interesting data in there. And you can see, one thing is for sure, this is causing crypto a lot of problems. I was listening to the hearing again, and you've got these, let's be fair, uneducated politicians talking about crypto, and the people they have representing the panel sometimes are awful, talking crypto down, saying why it needs to be regulated, would this have happened if everything was regulated, and we have the unnecessary attention on the crypto space right now. And the only thing I'm hoping for is that good regulation comes aboard, because good regulation is still going to be good for crypto overall. But one thing is for sure, they've got the opportunity to overreach now. The ball is on their side of the court in terms of regulation, because people who have been bankrupt by Terra Luna, bankrupt by Celsius, bankrupt by Voyager, bankrupt now by FTX, they're going to be screaming for regulation. And when the layperson screams for regulation, these regulators go in hard and they put in regulation more than should have been. In other words, they overreach. Okay, so I do want to cover this off as well, because this is kicking off here between the US and the Bahamas, and this is getting dangerous now, because remember, the US want to do their thing in terms of investigating this, and the Bahamas want to do it because it resided in their jurisdiction. So now you've got these guys fighting for who's got control to the IT resources, and this is going to be a little bit of a problem. So I want to keep an eye on this story as it unfolds as well, because one thing which stays in the way of people getting justice is these guys, these jurisdictions, fighting for extradition of Sam Bankman-Fried, for who controls the data, who's leading the investigation. There needs to be clear lines of communication between the two. And if that relationship starts to get damaged, this could put everything in the spin for the next couple of years. I mean, there could be huge delays into us getting any type of justice in this case, right? This could be put into a holding pattern for many years. So really hope that the US and the Bahamas can sit down, sort it out, draw some lines between you're doing this, we'll do this, and just get it agreed, get Sam Bankman-Fried extradited, and continue the process. Let's hope this doesn't continue to be an issue. In the meantime, Cathie Wood, the famous fund manager who came to fame by doing really well with risk on stocks back during the pandemic period, and since has really struggled in 2022 during the bear market, who hasn't, particularly those who are holding growth stocks, continues to buy the crypto dip. Right? And her buys of crypto particularly start with Coinbase. So she's bought 3.2 million of Coinbase to her portfolio, which means she now owns 5.8 million Coinbase shares. So she's doubling it down on centralized exchanges at a time when centralized exchanges are getting whacked. We just covered off the FTX drama. We just covered off what's going on with the FUD around Binance. She's doubling down and adding to her Coinbase position, a US regulated exchange. She believes that's where she wants to put her funds. So just thought I'd bring that to your attention. So let's now see where we're sat here on Bitcoin. We're sat here at 17,700, and to all intents and purposes, this is nice. I mean, look, we had a yo-yo yesterday where the price rocketed all the way up to 18,300, got a lot of us excited. But then we had the 50 basis point rate hike. And along with it, we had the summary of economic projections, which showed that the Fed increased their terminal rate. So they increased the Fed funds rate projection from 4.6 to 5.1. If you don't understand what that means, go watch my summary video from last night, because you're going to get caught up on exactly what the Fed said and why the markets got a little bit spooked by this. Now, there's two things going on here. One, some people are deeming that Jerome Powell has just gone and rogged the markets. He's put a roadblock in the way of the Christmas rally, and things are now just going to be boring between now and the end of the year. You've got another group of people who are saying, you know what, Jerome Powell's done this before. He's made projections about us not having a rate cut in 2023, but he's had many plans where he's U-turned on his plan. So we're not going to believe him, and we're going to crack on. And if you look at the Fed rate monitor tool, the next FOMC meeting is on February the 1st. And already you can see that 94% of the market have priced in just 25 basis points, which is very, very interesting to see that 5% have priced in a pause, and the rest of the market has priced in just 25 basis points. Naturally, we've got ages, and this is going to change over time, but right now, just a 25 basis point move is priced in for the next meeting. So Jerome Powell's coming out and saying, yeah, we may have slowed down to 50 basis points, but we're going to continue to rate hike. We're going to rate hike to a larger interest rate. By the way, where we're sat right now at 4.25 is the highest we've seen in 15 years. And he says we're going to stay there for longer. So that's why, long story short, the markets are not too pleased. We can bring out the EMA ribbon, and you can see we're at a critical level here. Okay, so we got the close above our EMA ribbon 2 days ago. Yesterday, we looked like we were loud and clear, well past it. Now we're getting a correction back down. We've got to see a nice retest. I need to see a bounce from here. I want to see something like that. We do not want to lose 17,600 and start coming down here. This is not going to be good for us. And then I start looking at 16,240 at this level. So I want to see a nice quick bounce and start working our way. Even once we're here, if we go sideways, that's absolutely fine. The best case scenario is working back up to 18,700. That's what I'm looking for. So we got to get this bounce from the EMA ribbon. If I notch down to the 4 hourly, you can see a similar thing. right? We're coming down towards that EMA ribbon. So again, on the 4 hourly, I want to see some volume come through. I want to see some strength come through, and we need to push on away from this 17,600 yellow line here. That's going to be an important level because those were the lows from the Terra Luna collapse. So we need to see that pick up. Let's now head back over to the daily because I want to show you something on the Bollinger Band. Let's bring out the Bollinger Band. And you can see we're teetering quite precariously at the top of the Bollinger Band. So we're just getting rejected here from the top of the Bollinger Band, which is, again, not showing too well. So what we need to see happen, even if we want to come down a little bit, just get that bounce back up here as opposed to coming all the way back down. Because if you look at the bottom of the Bollinger Band, it ties in exactly with that 16,240 horizontal support, which I spoke about. So the negative scenario is we come all the way down to the bottom of our Bollinger Band and try to hold support at 16,200. Let's also take a look at the dollar index. We're down here on crypto today, which normally suggests that dollar index is having a green day, and you can see that happening here. Dollar index bouncing from the bottom of its Bollinger Band, trying to get a little bit of a relief rally. One thing is for sure, dollar index is on a downtrend, right? You can see it's on a clear downtrend, but it may try to go for a brief relief rally. Now, as you can see, since we've managed to downtrend, the relief rallies have only ever gone into the red line, into the middle of the Bollinger Band. So dollar index has shown a lot of weakness here. Every time coming close to the red line, rejected, closer red line, rejected. In fact, if I remove this and bring up the EMA ribbon, it can't even get to the EMA ribbon. Right, so it's really struggling on its relief rally legs, which shows it's a strong, powerful downtrend. Now, it may want a couple of strong days and to get closer to its EMA ribbon, just to touch it, right? And if it does that, it'll also be touching its Bollinger Band, which is interesting as well. And by the way, guys, if you don't understand what I'm talking about, EMA ribbon, Bollinger Band, if it's all over your head, ijaz.uk/TA, learn this stuff, guys, completely free. Completely free. Nobody has put 10 years worth of traditional finance and crypto TA knowledge into one place. It's manageable, it's easy to use. Walk through it. I explain candlesticks, doji candles, head and shoulders pattern, inverse cup and handle patterns, all sorts. It's all in one place, like an encyclopedia for you, so you can sit in one place and watch all of that. Definitely take advantage of that, guys. Does not cost you a penny. So that's what we're seeing on the dollar index. So there you have it, guys. Kevin O'Leary fires shots at CZ and Binance. What's going to happen from here? We're definitely going to get a lot more statements coming out, which will and will not shake the markets. But more importantly, we're going to find out stuff which we didn't know. And that's really important for us as retail investors. We want to try to get the alpha where it never wants to be shared with us. This is the kind of data which if FTX didn't collapse, we would never have got access to. We would not know this sort of stuff. So I'll be listening with a keen eye. I will be sharing any updates from the hearings as I sit through the hours of the hearings to share it with you. Don't forget to go watch this video here to understand exactly what Jerome Powell said yesterday if you missed it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.